Hello, everybody. This is the Future Waves Afrofuturism 2.0 event. We are in discussion with myself. I am Tim Fielder, visual Afrofuturist and graphic novelist, here with Dr. Reynaldo Anderson of Temple University, and also the endowed chair at Macalester College, Dr. Walter Greason. It is my honor to be here to discuss during the Future Waves event, quantum. So Reynaldo, give us an idea of what quantum is.
Oh, I remember it was a project that was put together for the UN Summit of the Future last fall, and it comprised primarily uh, visual work you've done over the years, along with work by and contributions by Stacy Robinson, and I believe
Alan
Alan, I
St.
can't, Alan St. Clark. And it caught the eye of some people that were attending the summit, and they really liked it. And it was kind of visually catching a glimpse of the Afro future along the lines of sustainability, um, how to merge aspects of technology with the local environment. Um, and so it had a story to tell of how to navigate past tragedy into something more positive, and all of that's interwoven into was interwoven into the exhibition.
Walter, can you give us a few ideas of the origins of how quantum came about? Because it had this life before. What could you give us an idea of what you recall? This is actually when you first saw my work in real time, but go for it.
Yeah, no, it originates as so much of the goodness does with Professor Anderson, where he has an invitation to work with N Square and to talk about the effort to stop spreading nuclear weapons and the way to bring Afrofuturism to bear and to essentially train and license Afrofuturists as people who do future studies in a really formal way. And so, following the footsteps of Professor Anderson, Lonnie, out in the Bay Area,
Tony Avery Brooks.
yeah, like Brooks is basically opened the door for us to come and do that work. And so that's where you and Stacy Robinson, where you're doing your gifts, basically showing how to illustrate a future that's more peaceful, their African dignity is prepared or defended. And so that's where we all met and kind of did this work together. And I think it was shortly after that the Carnegie Hall show spun out. That's where Ronaldo introduced the whole team to Universal Right Press and those books, and led to Illmatic Consequences. And then a year after that,
Is, by the way, Illmatic Consequences is Walter's book, along with Damian Durrell Jerry
Jerry, yeah.
and Stacy Robinson did the cover. Sorry, I had to interject that. And also, before we get on, Dr. Anderson has a new book come out. It's kind of scary: Afrofuturism and World Order. So you guys are very scary individuals. So I'm sorry. Continue on. Continue on, Dr. Grayson.
No, I was just going to say the end of the year when we finished doing Illmatic Consequences, that's when you and I got together and did graphic history hip hop.
Right. Just as for the audience, so they can understand, the N Square, which I think is called Horizon 2050 now. Are they called Horizon 2050? I believe it is. That think tank. When they got it all together, just described, there were like 40 all practicing Afrofuturists from all over the world, meeting virtually over a period of time, which I guess lasted for about a year. And myself, Alan, and Stacy were really one of the only three visual artists. Everyone else, scholars, academics, philosophers, statisticians, I'm sure I mispronounced that, and future projectionists. And that's what we were trained in, the futures projection training. And I would hear all this information and I would basically decode what you guys were saying down into visuals. And it got pretty crazy and pretty expansive. After that was done, One of the things I noticed that a lot of the folks who were involved in the event, almost all writers would put out their findings, but very, very rarely would anything visual come out of all the visual content. So Reynaldo and I got together, and I was talking yeah, man, I want to do this book like Sid Mead. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And Reynaldo suggested the name Quantum, where we collected all that material together. And even though we still intend to publish it, it actually premiered as a gallery show during the UN Summit of the Future event at the Children's Arts Carnival. It was very good. We had panel discussions there with a lot of really forward-thinking individuals. Walter, you contributed your beautiful writing along with Reynaldo. What do you think? How do you think quantum applies? And I'll ask this question to both of you. How do you think quantum applies to the idea of Afrofuturist modalities moving forward?
Brother Anderson got the book that's on that, so I'm going to defer and let him talk about this new book.
When the train gets loud, I'm gonna put it on pause and Walter can pick up. But the book, it feeds into the concept of world order. Hold on a second.
And while the train is going by,
Yeah, the world order piece basically builds on a series of books, mostly in the Marxian tradition, but goes much further here because Afrofuturism breaks us out of European philosophical limitations that are associated with modernism. Yeah, go ahead, Professor Anderson.
So quantum feeds into what I was working on in the past year, my first solo book on Afrofuturism and world order. It's kind of in conversation with quantum based upon the data and some of the concepts we thought of when we were working with the N Square think tank at the time. So I think my book and the Quantum Project are among the few examples of Afrofuturism projects coming out of a conversation that began at a think tank. In terms of forecasting the future, Black futurology, world order. Because one of the things when I was studying the origins of futurology, how 90-something% of the conversation really starts in Western dominated countries, in particular after World War II with like the Rand Corporation and others. And they're basically they're in think tank to get millions of dollars of thinking about how to organize the world, and with little representation from people who look like us are not even part of the conversation. And so we challenge, I think Lonnie Brooks's work is like among those people who challenges their methodology. And I think future people writing about this period will probably be rightfully say it was BSAM that really started challenging the methodology of the futurist establishment. They won't call it Afrofuturist or this, that, and the other. They just use little soft words like cultural frameworks now. So they can still kind of fold it into some of their neoliberal corporate practice. But we keep it hardcore, and I kept it hardcore because I saw a multipolar world coming years ago. That the way the world was organized wasn't sustainable, and the world that we were organized was going to come to an end. Every system, whether you're a systems theorist and a historian, I'll even tell you, every system has a beginning and an end. And we were born at the tail end of a system that's coming to an end. And the 2008 financial crisis and then COVID had just accelerated the end of that system. And some people got their lips poked out about it, and I talked about the dark enlightenment 10 years ago. and my writings, and people were like, "What's that?" And now a decade later, and now they're like, "Oh, that's what that was about." So quantum is in conversation with uh, Afrofuturism and world order text. And I think after this Dakar meeting is going to be the way people talked about Afrofuturism before Dakar and then after Dakar. And it's got the same way people talked about Afrofuturism kind of before Ferguson, after Ferguson, or before Black Panther, after Black Panther. And this is another benchmark moment where it signifies the transition that I've been kind of forecasting all along. And now it's here. And you can't even be relevant in the Afrofuturist conversation if you talk about it the way it was talked about 10 years ago. You know?
Now let me say this. As the visual Afrofuturist in this group here, that's the one thing. It's like there's an avalanche of illuminated writing that I think, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Greason, you guys are at the forefront of that with several other Afrofuturist. However, I would say it's one thing to write about it, and it's another thing to show what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's what I was really happy about with Quantum, was that we could actually put the two things together. In my particular benefit, or efforts, it was about showing what an Afrocentric or Afrofuturist utopia would look like, all the way from the complete pendulum swing to what an Afrofuturist dystopia would look like. But then, in the process of doing that, having to be very clear about defining what an Afrofuturist neutropia would look like. What is it like where it's a little bit of good and a little bit bad? And I wanted to go to the extremes, all the way from the most idealistic multicultural environment that's open to basically irradiated wasteland. So I felt like these things were important. You could write about it, and that's very, very important, but to have the true power of it maximized is to then show what it looks like. And that was important, I think, for this project. So we're coming down to the end. I just wanted to say one thing, and then hand it off and get ready to close this out. What is Future Waves, right? What is it? How does it internet connect with quantum? And where do you guys think we go after this with both Future Waves and quantum? And we'll start with Dr. Greason first.
Yeah, this was a great honor for me to work with first you to kind of form Graphic History Company, but then with my brother Reynaldo to step up and kind of take on the global challenge in this moment. We were talking frequently through 2024 about the bankruptcy of the Harris campaign, the struggles that people were underestimating, the Trump campaign, the second one. And so seeing the world as it began to fracture and that authoritarianism was beginning to rise, we both agreed we saw an opportunity for the diaspora and for the continent to really take agency and leadership and be part of this emerging world. So that's what, for me, Future Waves is. It's this chance to bring Africa to the forefront of world leadership.
Okay, Dr. Anderson.
I see a lot of stuff converging at this moment because the theme I came up with that I advanced was futurizing Fanon. This is the 100th anniversary of his birth, of the Martinican / Algerian revolutionary, 100th anniversary of Malcolm X's birth. So I think the timing was good to revisit some of their conceptual ideas in a philosophical way around some of the stuff we're experiencing now. It's looking like that both Fanon and Malcolm X are going to be remembered as the true kind of dystopian, kind of futuristic prophets of the African diaspora of the 20th century in terms of issues around change and how that happens, and struggle, and the price that has to be paid for the struggle, and also how do we make meaning of it now in terms of going forward, and plus, to me, I looked at the conference as a way of bringing both sides of what some scholars call the Black Atlantic, both global North and South, together in one spot to talk about our collective futures, those people, Africans of the diaspora and Africans from the continent, rather than just sitting back in our TVs and having our senses assaulted by, Mr. Purple Hands and other people.
Who could that be? I'm
Well,
joking. I'm joking.
And other people that feel comfortable enough to say stuff. And so my thing is, you always show more agency when you're talking about what you're going to do or what we're going to do, rather than waiting and figure out, talking about what they're talking about. Now we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, and we're not asking for permission from anyone to do it. And we're going to have the conversation. And I've already got people that have hit me up and are going to contact Walter. They want the conversation to go on after the meeting's over in other places around the world. And Future Waves, I guess, is going to be the beginning of that global Astro Black conversation about how do we deal with this combination of fascism and techno-capitalism that is now here, that we have forecast for some time now, that is on top of us. And that's what Future Waves means to me.
All right. So with that, want to thank you guys for getting together so we can discuss this and get some kind of clarity on what's going on. The quantum show is active during the Future Waves event. You'll be able to see all the images, basically the show in virtual. And thank you guys so much.
Joy to be with y'all.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
All right.